Tonga have been very disappointing, haven't they, Phil? Very. We've built this up as this great series between two nations, and England have, bar, what, one half of rugby, maybe two halves at St Helens. The two games I've been to have not been great, unfortunately. That's my fault. I'm going to take the blame.
I think that is a fair charge to level at them. I think you also have to bear in mind that they're not blessed with sufficient squad depth at the moment, and if you take 3 or 4 big names out who didn't come over, that's probably not a surprise. And if you divorce the game this weekend from the rest of the series, it was by far the most entertaining game from an England perspective. I don't know whether that was deliberate or not, but it was almost as if, having won it, they went into the third game with the shackles taken off a little bit and played some lovely rugby.
It was probably England's best performance, I think, out from the 3 games. I think you're right, because they've got the series victory. Does that give them a little bit more freedom to play? Of course, George Williams was back, in the half, so you'd have to say he had some influence.
Which you could see why, Shaun Wane was adamant that he was going to play, and that however well Mikey Lewis had played in the first couple of games, it was always going to be Harry Smith, who I think had his best game with Williams outside him, and Williams controlling that midfield. That clearly that was justified selection. I just thought, I don't know whether it's the players took it on themselves, but they looked like they're enjoying it a little bit more than the first 2 tests. And I think certainly the try scored by Elliot Whitehead, which was arguably the most emotional try of the afternoon on his final appearance, and the one by Harry Newman, which again got the biggest cheer because it's his first international try on his home ground. That they would have graced any game. They were really entertaining, and the crowd got behind it as well, and they appreciated it, which again we hadn't seen or there. Well, we hadn't seen or heard that much in St Helens or Huddersfield. Maybe that's because there wasn't that much to get excited about, but there certainly was at Headingley.
It was like Russ Abbott had turned up and brought with him his famed atmosphere. There's one for the teenagers, which, as we know,
well, I remember Russ Abbott
immediately your eyebrows.
Scored this goal in the 80s.
I do remember Russ Abbott because we went to see him live. They had the Russ Abbott show, didn't they? So then I'm showing my age there, but I don't remember the famed audience bit. But
atmosphere was one of the great.
It looked good on TV.
It did. But
I
always looks good on TV.
I thought the first game and the third game had come across well on TV in terms of the crowd. It was just because the stadium was so much bigger at Huddersfield, it didn't. But
well, it used to be anti-Huddersfield.
I mean, I've been talking about crowds. I didn't see much other than the highlights of the Australia-New Zealand game. There was hardly anybody there at Hamilton.
It's really weird. I mean, the cameras were on the other side to where the
crowd,
like at Salford when they show the empty stand.
Yeah. But the really weird thing is that the same people that were tweeting, it's a terrible crowd of 13,500 in New Zealand. It's a brilliant crowd of 15,500 at Headingley. You're going, there ain't a lot of difference.
Although it'd be interesting, had Tonga been playing in a game in Hamilton, it probably would have been
20. Yeah, and I think with the whole thing about international rugby leagues, it's building from a base in New Zealand where there hasn't been really any rugby for 2 years, effectively. But that is the kind of result that is going to get people buying tickets for the Pacific Championships next time. So, massive success. We get obsessed about crowds, how many people are coming, is it a record, and all that. Just to enjoy the fact that Australia have been thrashed. However many people. And as somebody wrote, I was reading some of the reports coming in from New Zealand, that is going to be a game where there may well have only been 13,500 people there, but 4.5 million will say that.
And the more important numbers are the TV figures. And if they're good, then there might be more money come from TV for International Rugby League. And we're all looking forward to next autumn when Samoa are coming. Or not, as Christian Wolf said, they might not come. Which was quite good. It's a shame Christian Wolf didn't do his press conference before Shaun Wane, and then we could have all said to Shaun Wane, Shaun, you say Samoa coming, but Christian Wolf says they're not, and then they could have had a fight in a car park. That'd have been good.
Carried on their animosity.
Yeah. But it was England won. You can't take anything away from England's performances.
Not at all.
I did enjoy the whole Mikey Lewis discourse in midweek, as if anyone thought he was going to play when George Williams has been in the squad. He wasn't dropped when he was suspended for the first 2 tests, and everyone knew because Shaun Wane said he was going to play. Forgetting that Mikey Lewis didn't have it. Cried on the telly, had a great first test, didn't have a great second test. People seem to have forgotten that fact, but he should have been in the squad because he's our own and he's not George Williams, who we don't like because he plays for Warrington.
I'm not 100% sure why Josh Thewlis and Morgan Smithers were called up not to play.
They could have been on holiday or something.
Ash Handley being sent out to 10,000-mile trip to not play.
Particularly if you've won your first 2 games, surely your third game's the opportunity to give somebody a game to see how they perform. And,
You're thinking like, I don't say a normal person, that makes me sound like Shaun Wane's not normal, but he wants to win, not at all costs, but he'd put his strongest team out regardless.
Yeah, and in some ways that is admirable, and that's what he's paid to do. His record, apart from the semi-final against Samoa, is virtually, is it something like 10 wins out of 12 or something like that. That's what he's paid to do. So sentiment doesn't come into it. But I just thought that it felt like a different occasion to a league game on Saturday, and that is what international should be. You should park your domestic season and then say, right, we've got... And you listen to the players, even the Tongan players, you certainly the New Zealand players that were all interviewed, the PNG players, and even the Fijians. Mike Kasivo is as big a star in PNG as all the PNG guys. They've loved it. They always keep saying when they played internationals, we need and want more of it. So
I think what was good though was, I think I was listening to the BBC commentary. They talked about next year that England are playing Samoa, and the year after it's whatever that is. Is it the down under Test series against Australia?
Yeah.
And then the World Cup the year after that. So
then the Kiwis are coming in, and the Kangaroos are coming in. Then it's another World Cup.
Yeah, and almost for the first time in my lifetime, I thought, actually, here's a calendar. Here's something to look forward to. If I still maintain because things do change in rugby league. But that sounded encouraging. That there is something to look forward to next year, and hopefully this is the start of something to.
I just think that what we don't do as well as we should, and perhaps can't, purely because of the logistics, is the tickets for Samoa, if it is going to be Samoa, should have gone on sale at the end of the Tonga series. The venue should be announced. The corporate people who have seen, the wheelchair, which we'll talk about separately. It brought it home why LED advertising is far more important than people are prepared to give it credit for.
This is the hill we're dying on, these LED boards.
The LED boards at the Leeds Arena, they were at the side of the pitch, opposite the cameras that were in action throughout the entire 2 hours, that it was on the BBC. They have to have a premium value for all the advertisers that are on it. Now, if you can say to them, these are when the next wheelchair internationals are, this is when the next England running game international, sign up now.
I mean, it's from a
and I know it's easy to sit here and say that, and the commercial world out there probably isn't quite as black and white as that. But if we've got the calendar, the other nuts and bolts that we need to put in are the fixtures and the commercial partners behind it.
I agree, and I think you're right. I hadn't heard the story about it may or may not be Samoa, and hopefully that doesn't come true. But you're right. There should be now tickets available to buy for next year.
At least we should know where the venues are,
where it's going to be, and the dates and. That is forward planning. Hopefully that's to come. But my only concern about Samoa is their performances in this specific tournament, and whether we may get something similar to what we've seen with Tonga, because I do think Tonga have been disappointing, and you can only beat the team that's put in front of you. England, I thought generally have played well. Ultimately, the test always comes in against New Zealand and Australia. Clearly, they lost against Samoa in the semi-final of the World Cup. I'm not taking that away from him, but that was a World Cup where you get all your players on board, your strongest possible side. So the test still comes, I think, in 2 years' time when they go down under, because that's going to be a huge challenge to go and play Australia in their own backyard.
Can we afford the flights?
Especially as they're going to be wounded. Well, they can afford the flights. It's just what class of flight they're in.
Do they pay for the flights? Do the Australians pay for them? Is that okay?
Business class.
Because it's a bit of a...
Well, what usually happens?
It's Steve Mascott's story.
Yeah, what usually happens in these situations is that the host usually provides basic sort of cover, whether that be economy flights and sort of hotel accommodation, and anything beyond that. So business class flights, it's usually topped up by, say, England. So Australia would probably pay for economy flights, and England would top up. But it will all depend on the financial success of the tournament, I guess. I mean, one would imagine this hasn't made money as a tournament, and whether the Pacific Bowl has probably made money, probably not, based on what Steve Mascott was saying last week.
At the very least, it might have broken even. I don't know what crowd figures they needed, but they've had a 3/4 full Headingley, half full Huddersfield, and 2/3 full St Helens. You would hope that those figures would give them enough in terms of attendance, as well as whatever commercial income they've got from LEDs and anything else. That it's I think is the term washed its face.
That is a phrase I've heard before. On bargain hunt, mainly. Well, that's the main thing.
I mean, the thing is, we've had anything up to nearly 1 million people at peak time watching it on the BBC, which again, to an unfamiliar audience who just watch an international and see England win, does it really matter whether Tonga were at full strength or not, played as well as they could have done it?